All right, now let's give you the very latest on the nationwide protests across the country. We now go to Limpopo, where our senior reporter Mahlako Komane is. Mahlako, talk to us about what is happening where you are. Has the turnout been good?
Yes, good afternoon to you indeed, Unati, and the viewers back at home. In terms of the turnout, in fact, what is happening currently is marchers have started dispersing back to SABC Park, where this march initially started. That was the meeting point this morning. Memorandums were delivered at the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy at the Premier's office, which is where we are right now, as well as Eskom. I think Eskom was the second stop. In terms of the turnout, yes, it was quite a great turnout. We also did see that about 70% or so of businesses, in terms of us driving around in Polokwane today, were closed. It was also quite peaceful in the sense that we did not see any, violence, any violent disruption of those that decided to continue operating for the day in terms of opening up their businesses. But perhaps in terms of, for someone to give us an idea of the success of the march, if it has indeed been successful, let me bring in SACP General Secretary Mr. Mapaila just to tell us. He was among the leadership here in terms of the alliance with the ANC that was here. There were also the president of COSATU was also here, as well as provincial leadership of the ANC. Dr. Mapaila, thank you so much for talking to us. In terms of today's, program, would you say you are quite happy with what you've seen?
This was a great success. All workers came out in big numbers of COSATU, as well as SAFTU, who are here. And I think going forward, there will be a necessity for more coordination and unity of the workers to maximize their impact. But it's still okay. They came on the same day, meeting point, same time. Quite amazing. But COSATU took the leadership of this. We appreciate this critical action against the high cost of living in our country, which affects everyone. The workers can no longer afford food for their families, for themselves. They can no longer afford petrol, can no longer afford electricity, they can no longer afford transport. All of this has been taken away. So they are working poor. And therefore, this march was important to send a clear message to government and to big capital that workers cannot take it anymore. All of them need to respond. Big capital cannot continue to make huge profits and send them abroad and not put them back in the country for reinvestment. And that's why the conditions of the economy are deteriorating for our workers. And therefore, this action today was encouraging.
Okay, you talk about the unaffordability of lifestyle for a lot of workers here in the country, as a whole. It's not, let's come back to the basics. Fuel. Everybody's complaining about fuel. Whether you are a driver or you're a passenger, it's expensive. It didn't start today. What took so long for the alliance to realize that there's a problem? Are you still in touch with grassroots level problems of the ordinary South African?
No, these are issues that have been raised. It's in the memorandum of COSATU. 4 years ago, an agreement was reached with government about fuel cap, particularly with COSATU. And the government promised to do a research and come back on that. It's still in the memorandum. Before that, there was a march that actually demanded the reduction of fuel. Of course, now the price of fuel is further exacerbated by the war in Europe and by NATO and the USA, who are supporting Ukraine against Russia. And therefore, that has escalated oil prices across the world. But we need to make sure that in our country, whatever is the case, the conditions of the people of our country do not necessarily rely on the conditions of situations that we do not have control on, including those in Europe. I mean, for instance, we have no impact of the situation in Europe. But what I can tell you is that we have got necessary resources and capacity to meet the needs of our people here at home. So we need an economy that is a focus on meeting the needs of its people before it can integrate and be part of the international or global economy.
I know you've been asked this question today. You as SACP, COSATU, as well as the ANC, have members that you've put into leadership in terms of running the government. You're part of, let's just call it the leadership of this country, party that is in control. Would you say you're marching against yourselves, or people or comrades that find themselves in positions of influence in terms of making the decisions, setting policies, the different spheres of government? Are they doing their job? Is this alliance still relevant? The fact that you had to find yourself marching on the streets today?
The alliance remains relevant. The framework of the alliance remains relevant. It's the most comprehensive transformation program the country has. No other parties have produced a different and better framework than the one that we have, the National Democratic Revolution, which seeks to end racism, poverty, inequality, and class exploitation comprehensively, and gender inequality comprehensively. So that is why our analysis is on the basis of race, class, and gender in terms of any other difficulties that we face. You will also notice that the people who are most affected by poverty are the black majority, and they are women, and from the working class. So that project of the alliance remains important. We are in a political alliance with the ANC, but we are not in alliance with government. Government is a separate entity in itself. It's a contested terrain. That is why we are saying to the workers and to our alliance movement, there needs to be a change in the manner in which we implement priorities of government. We have had better priorities. For instance, it is this alliance that put in terms of major priorities for our country, the issue of health, land, education, employment, even though government later on reneged on this thing and allowed that employment should be driven by the private sector through what they call competition in network industries. In other words, in all those key areas of social services, we're handing them over to capital. We don't agree with government on that, and we have expressed our views regarding that particular those issues. So therefore, there's no contradiction for us to march and still be in alliance. The issue is that those deployed in government must do the right thing and prioritize key issues facing the working class, and must not be focused on peripheral questions. Even the bureaucracy in government must focus on the primary task of the manifesto of the ruling party, in which case I think if you look into the manifesto of the ruling party and what's happening in government, it leaves much to be desired.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mapaila.
Thank you very much.
You've heard the SACP General Secretary, Dr. Soli Mapaila, just telling us about the fact that they're marching with, the ANC as well as COSATU today is not being, well, it goes with what they believe in, that there's nothing that is, out of the ordinary, but also just saying that they need to be speaking to those that have been deployed into government to ensure that they are able to implement, the policies of the ruling parties, and to ensure that they fight poverty, in the country. Back to you in studio.
Mahlako, thank you so much for that. Of course, Mahlako Komane is coming to us live there from Limpopo.